It's not today that we started it. It's Nkrumah time, even before Nkrumah's time. It just made me understand and appreciate Ghanaians for who we are. Some people are there. They think that in Africa we live on trees.
Bombastic side eye.
Hello everybody. My name is Alice Johnson. You can call me AJ for short, and you're welcome to my first ever video. Thank you. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the first ever movie to be made in Ghana. Have you ever wondered what it was? This particular film is the first ever film that was made with an African theme, because the themes back then in Ghana were mostly British themed, and because they were British who were heading our film unit, so they weren't really adding any African elements, but this particular film came to change things. So the name of the movie is The Boy Kumasenu, and The Boy Kumasenu was shot in Ghana. It was shot between 3 cities, that is Accra, Keta, and Kede, and it was shot between 1950 and 1951. At the time, the head of the Gold Coast Film Unit was Mr. Sean Graham, and he was the one who directed, wrote, produced it with other individuals. The impact of this film was widespread because it was featured in the Cannes Film Festival. It was also featured in the British Academy Film Awards back then in 1953 when it was released. It really made an impact and solidified Ghana as one of the countries to watch out for in Africa. And also the time that tension was rising because people were whispering here and there that Ghana wanted independence. Some of the themes that were discussed in the movie were rural urban migration, and then we also had coming of age of a country, which was the struggle for independence. So when I dive into the story proper, you would understand it. It's basically about a boy called Kumasenu, and Kumasenu and his cousin Agbo. They grew up in the village, and the name of the village was not really given, but since it was shot in Keta and Kede, I'm assuming that that's where they were. Kumasenu and his cousin Agbo, they have the desire to leave the town and go to Accra because they've heard so much about Accra and they want to go and then explore the city for themselves. Agbo, his cousin, is older and he's more rebellious, so he eventually leaves the town, but Kumasenu is left in the town, and because he's younger and he doesn't stay with his parents, he actually stays with his uncle and his aunt. They don't permit him to leave and go to Accra, which was very disheartening. But then he became so sad, and so many things happened after he became so sad that alluded to the fact that the gods were not happy with the town for not allowing Kumasenu to go to Accra. I know, right? Interesting. So because of that, they were like, you know what, we don't want your wahala anymore. Kumasenu, just pack your things and go to the city and explore life for yourself. So he did that. But before that, his uncle was like, oh, let me recommend you to someone and then you can start a job. So Kumasenu's uncle took him to Mr. Zegbenu's drinking bar in the town, and he gave him the opportunity to work for him as a bartender. So some months passed by, and then Agbo, his cousin, comes back from the city wearing suit, looking all fly, came to Kumasenu and told him that you are just wasting your time here. I'm enjoying in the city, come around. Eventually, a lot of things happen. They end up stealing from Mr. Zegbenu. Kumasenu goes to the city. So Kumasenu goes through a lot of challenges. The film consisted of an all Ghanaian cast and they spoke fancy. Basically, none of the actors in the movie were professionals. I actually found out that Kumasenu was a young boy who grew up in Gold Coast and he was staying in Cape Coast. And the first bit of it is the fact that yes, it was shot in Ghana. It was shot in Accra, Keta, and Kede, like I previously said. And then the second element would be that it was in Fante. And Fante is still a language that we speak in Ghana today. The third element would be that in the scene where Kumasenu was worried, anxious that he was not able to go to Accra, he became so worried that it was believed that the gods were also not at peace. So because of that, they were not able to fish. And then they were saying that it was because Kumasenu was not happy or because he was not going to Accra. So that is very superstitious. And also the fact that his aunt at a point had to go and visit a fetish priest so that she could settle with her boys. She was saying that Agbo and Kumasenu were a bit too anxious to go to Accra, so she visited a fetish priest. I think those were elements that the filmmaker put in there to just show the kind of way of life of Gold Coast people. Another element would be that the people of Gold Coast were very, very communal. So there was even a scene where there was a quote that the restlessness of the boys was a matter of great concern to the people in the village. So you could tell that this was a very communal setting, and that was what Ghana was before. Even though we are drifting now into the nuclear family way of life, but we still have people living with their cousins, aunts, nephews, grandmas, grandfathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, auntie, and all of that. So we are still very communal people. Remember the time I spoke about Kumasenu going to work for one Mr. Jegbenu at his local drinking bar? Well, so on that particular day, when he went with his uncle, and his uncle was Mr. Fiao. So Mr. Fiao went to Mr. Jegbenu, he with Kumasenu, took him in hand, went to see him. When he went to see him, they were exchanging pleasantries, and hey, it was a long exchange of pleasantries. How are you? How are the kids? How are your wives? How are your brothers and sisters? And Ghanaians, we are still the same. We are still the same. We still do that thing today. When you meet someone by the roadside, how are you? I'm fine. And you? I'm okay. Are you okay? Are you fine? Are you?
How are you? Fine.
Jose,
Are you?
we have not changed one bit.
You?
We as Ghanaians have not changed one bit. And I love it. I love it. That's what makes us uniquely us. Another element I noticed, so there was a time when some people came to Mr. Jebenu's local bar, and Kumasenu was cleaning, serving drinks, doing the usual, and then the boys were talking, they were speaking English, and he was so fascinated. Oh my God, bro, like, what kind of language is this? The boys were talking, and then one of them said,
"Keep quiet there, small boy. Your head like something."
"Hey," is a direct translation of they say "Yedi woho utiti say." Ghanaians, we've not changed though. We've not changed. Just a pity Nkrumah time, even before Nkrumah's time, we're still the same people. There was another scene where Kumasenu, I think it was the same scene that the insult happened. Yes, while the boys were exchanging words, that then they just decided to go and dance on the dance floor. Just a whole 7 minutes, so a whole 7 minutes of the film was dedicated to the dance and pay. But it's still the same, because even in Ghana today, when you turn your TV on, whether it is paint or mosquito coil or food or a telecom network or whatever it is at all that is being advertised, my brother, my sister, you will see a whole dance formation dedicated to the adverts. So already the dance is an inborn something. It's inborn. It's not today that we started this thing. So it just made me understand and appreciate Ghanaians for who we are. Say so let's have to see. So there were other elements like girls playing ampe, and the kind of hairstyling and clothing that they picked as well was very, very reminiscent of Ghana. So those are a few of the Ghanaian elements that I noticed while I was watching the movie. In case you also notice any of them, don't hesitate to share it in the comments below, and let's get talking. So with the British elements, they were mostly very stereotypical. So in the opening of the film, you would see Kumasenu and his cousin Agbo climbing a tree, coconut tree by the seaside. Very, very stereotypical of the way people think that we live in Africa. People even still think that we live on trees. Like some people are there, they think that in Africa we live on trees.
Bombastic side eye.
You come to Ghana in December, thereabout. Come and see us swinging on the trees, left, right, center. There were a lot of gems that were dropped in the film. So I feel that Kumasenu as a character represented Gold Coast as a country, trying to transition from being colonized to being independent. And that was his journey from the village to the city. So he had to make that change. He had to decide within himself that this is what he wanted. But when he went to the city, he realized that life was not easy. So I think they were trying to send us a message. By they, I mean the British crew, you know, the people who wrote the film. They were trying to send Ghanaians a message that yes, you may want independence, yes, you may be fighting for it, but it's not as easy as it seems to run a country by yourself. It takes a lot of dedication, it takes, you know, preparedness, being ready, and that is what Kumasenu had to learn. Kumasenu met a doctor when he moved to Accra, and that doctor became who saved him from all his predicaments and then took him in as a son. And that doctor can be likened to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I don't know if art was imitating life or life was imitating art, but then I do know for sure that the film was shot in 1950. That was before Ghana gained independence. Watch the film for yourself. It's linked in the description box, and tell me what you think about it. Let me know if there's anything you noticed that I've not mentioned already, and let's get interactive in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching the video up to this point. I really appreciate it. Kindly subscribe if you haven't already, and share with a friend or two so that they get to see the first ever feature film that was made in Ghana. Thank you so much for staying, and I'll see you in my next video. Take good care. Bye.